For all of you who listen to Mac East Second Floor Studios presents Submersion and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device. I use the app and I love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure to set Mac East Second Floor Studios as a favorite so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Again, the app is the Podcast Republic app, available on Android devices. Episode 45.
Woo!
And this is a big one. So we've got everybody on board.
Yeah, last week was a skeleton crew. Now, what's the opposite of skeleton crew?
Fleshy crew.
A fleshy crew. We got a fleshy crew. Fleshlight crew up in here.
Great. Or is it flesh heavy?
What's that?
Nothing.
Okay.
Flesh heavy.
Man. Yeah, dude.
And yeah, so it's a very, very important episode. We even got, what do we got attached to this episode?
We have an excellent interview with Ian Sanders of Cold War Conversations. It is a podcast completely dedicated to the Cold War and people who lived through it and their stories. It's incredible. The interview is great. He gives us a lot of good information on the Cold War. Stick around for it. It is definitely worth listening to.
Yeah, all the listeners are like, wait, but you're a submarine podcast. You're not a Cold War podcast. So why do we have a Cold War person on it?
Because we're wrapping up Cold War Movie Month.
Woo!
With
Second woo.
Never mind.
Oh.
With the biggest, baddest Cold War movie of them all.
Damn it.
Interestingly, not made, just made literally at the very end of the Cold War.
Right.
Yeah. It was filmed, and I got some trivia about Sean Connery basically being like, I don't want to be in this movie. The Cold War doesn't even mean anything anymore. Yeah. And then they were like, well, but it's historical. It's set in 1983. It was like, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, anybody got anything they want to say for this movie right now?
Like, before we hear the recap?
Yeah, man, before. You got anything you want to say?
I have one thing I want to say is that we got an Ohio representing actor in this film. And if he doesn't get his spotlight, I'm going to be pissed off.
It's obviously Sam Neill. I'm joking. He's Australian.
Oh, is he really?
He is.
Never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Mel Gibson.
Well, everybody knows that.
Mad Max.
I got a question for everybody. As we're going to find out, we have a Jack Ryan character on here tonight. Who's everybody's favorite Jack Ryan? There have been 5, I think.
Harrison Ford.
I mean, I think it's obvious. Chris Pine. Duh.
Harrison Ford.
I was joking. It's not Chris Pine.
I haven't hated
It's obviously John Krasinski.
Right. The new.
I like all of them.
This might be the only Jack Ryan I know.
Have you seen the John Krasinski one, Alex? The series?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Of course I've seen it. Yes.
Not a sponsor, just to be clear. Yet.
You know, he kind of does a little bit of gym stuff from The Office, but I think he just can't help himself. I think that's just who he is in real life.
I haven't heard anything good or bad about it, so that's my first
I also,
review.
before we even get, I do want to say that I read this book a year ago in preparation for the podcast because I assumed we're doing a submarine podcast. How many episodes could we possibly do before we actually get to Hunt for Red October? The answer is apparently 44 episodes before we actually watch probably one of the most famous, or the top 3 most famous submarine films ever made.
Yeah.
And so I barely remember it. But luckily this somewhat refreshed my memory. It's pretty close adaptation. So
don't worry, Jamie. I've been looking forward to this movie as well, thinking we'd do it within the first 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Joke's on us, but I got ready for this episode by playing the NES game, The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, good. That's a good plan.
More on that later.
Nice.
I can't wait to hear about that.
Dive! It's like the best one we've done in a while.
It is. It's good. What began as an innocent conversation among friends would soon spiral out of control and later be referred to by future generations as the 8th wonder of the modern world. Mac East Second Floor Studios takes you on the journey of your lifetime as your captains, Alex the Mustard Man, the artist formerly known as Brom, Jamie the Brain, Kyle El Capitan, and Zach the Backbone present Submersion. I think it's pretty clear what we've watched, but Alex, just for the sake of tradition, what did we watch?
We watched a book made to film. The Hunt for Red October. It's a 1990 film. One of the best.
You weren't sure where you were going with that, huh?
Harry Potter.
Tom Clancy, right? Rest in peace.
Tom Clancy. Yeah.
Was it Tom Clancy?
Yes.
I thought it was
Yeah.
Thomas
Jack
Clancy's. Oh man.
Yeah, it's Tom Clancy.
Yeah, it wasn't his brother Jim Clancy.
What else did he write? Was he good for anything else?
Rainbow Six, I think.
Never heard of it.
Yep.
Of course.
Some of All Fears.
Never heard of it.
He has.
Those are all Jack Ryan.
Patriot Games. Clear and Present Danger.
They still use his name on the books now, even though
Yeah.
he's 6 feet under.
Yeah. Who's writing his books now?
Tammy.
Amelia Bedelia, I believe he wrote that.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Hulk the Cow Dog.
Surprisingly enough, this is a PG-rated film.
I know. They said it was the only PG rating the director ever got, McTiernan or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's only had PG-13 and R other than this film, PG.
Interesting.
Which is funny because he totally like snapped someone's neck in the middle of it.
I know. Can you imagine seeing that in a PG film today?
Like a 10-year-old being like, oh!
Yeah.
I
You know what film
totally
really
imagine.
scarred me? Hunt for Red October. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
But you wouldn't have a... Can you imagine? Because how old can a PG movie, like, will they not let kids into the theater or something? Or it's just recommended?
Wait,
I think it's just recommended. I
There's
think
the
anyone
neck
can get into
snapped.
PG.
Oh, yeah.
As long
Did
as
you even watch this?
as long as it's a Russian's neck getting snapped in today's world,
Oh,
we'd give it a
I see.
G. I think we're
Oh,
okay.
gotcha. So it's
Gotcha, right.
it's
G
kind of
for
like
good.
how you can, if you're like shooting aliens in a video game, it's different than if you're like going head to head with people.
Exactly.
It's less real. Okay, great.
Correct.
So like you'd mentioned, this was directed by John McTiernan. Is
John
that it?
McTiernan, yeah.
Uh,
Noted criminal,
oh.
just to mention.
Great.
He's in jail, I believe, or just out of jail. Or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Fancy.
He lied to federal authorities.
And
Who
they don't
hasn't?
like it when you do that.
They definitely do not want you to do that. Yes.
It also stars Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Scott Glenn, Sam Neill, James Earl Jones, Courtney B. Vance, Tim Curry.
There it is.
And Tim Curry. And an extremely sweaty Stellan Skarsgård.
No, wait. Mr. Kyle, what about the guy from Ohio?
Who?
The guy from Youngstown, Ohio, Anthony Peck. Rest in peace. He's dead.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle just appears.
No, Ben, there's more than one African-American actor out there.
Oh.
Heyo.
From Ohio? I think that's what he was going for.
Don't
Oh,
get funny,
John
Alex.
Legend, my bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Courtney B. Vance is funny because he's come back into prominence because that OJ TV show. So like he's a well-regarded television actor now.
Who was he in that?
He was a sonar guy. Oh, you're talking about in the
Yeah,
OJ?
I'm like, wait, I don't remember a sonar guy in the OJ show.
No, he was Johnny Cochran.
Oh, that's why he looks so familiar.
Yeah, he's Johnny
Okay.
Cochran. Yep.
All right, let's get into this.
Yes. All right. So it's 1984, and a new Soviet submarine is being launched with Captain Marko Ramius, and he's commanding. It's called Red October, and it's a kind of a larger Typhoon class nuclear missile submarine, and it's got something very special about it. What does it have? We learn it a little bit later, but we may as well talk about it.
Yeah, it has what is referred to as a caterpillar drive, which is a silent propulsion system, which means those guys can just straight up disappear.
Right. And so this is a little different from the book. They kind of say that the Americans had tried to develop it but couldn't get it to work, and the Russians had finally got it to work, and they were kind of launching this boat. In the book, it was kind of explained that the Americans tried it, but it wasn't as good, and they couldn't, it wasn't as like efficient as they had hoped, and so they scrapped it. They actually actively were like, we don't actually want to do that technology anymore.
Mm-hmm. But that's way later.
yeah.
It zooms in on what I hope my face looks like when I'm much older. Sean Connery's very weathered eyes.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
It's
kind
great.
of like a Father Christmas type of look you're going for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Anyway, so Father Christmas is on the bridge of the submarine, and he's like, ready to launch, baby.
And this sub is huge.
It's gigantic.
It's a Typhoon.
Yeah, and he's super well regarded. He's basically trained everyone in the Russian submarine like ranks, and they're presumably are supposed to be going out on a kind of training mission, war games, with one of his proteges, Captain Tupolev. And they're going to basically be trying to evade these attack submarines using this Caterpillar drive. Like that we know kind of that's the mission.
Right. But before this, there's word, the Americans get word that there's something new about this one going out. It has these doors on it that they have not seen before.
Yeah, so Jack Ryan is an analyst. He lives in London as a professor at the time, but he gets these pictures from one of his sources in Russia because he's like a Russia specialist for the CIA analyst. And so he's get these pictures from one of his spies that he has in the network. And so he sees these doors and is like, oh shit, like I better go and tell Washington. So he flies from London all the way to Washington.
This part was so stupid though. He's explaining to a flight attendant what turbulence is. Like she's not going to know.
Right. Talking about how warm air is like rising to the...
He's like, oh, I don't like turbulence. She's like, what are you talking about? Well, let me explain turbulence.
Is that mansplaining? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
Alec Baldwin explaining more like it. And,
what?
And he, but yeah, so he's heading to Washington to basically show this off a little bit. And so he does it of his own volition. Like they're not asking him to come or whatever. He's basically saying, okay, I found this. Here it is. And he gives it to an admiral played by
James Earl Jones.
Darth Vader himself is there. And you're literally like, whoa, kill him quick. He's Darth Vader.
But he's got like the best voice you've ever heard.
Yeah, this time he's
it's so good.
And so, Admiral James Greer, that's his name, talks to Jack Ryan. Is basically like, oh shit, like this is pretty important. What do you want to do about it? He's like, I'm going to go talk to one of the guys who works on your submarines if I can, and kind of try to figure out what these things are. And so he heads off to talk to the submarine expert.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut on over to the USS Dallas, and that's where we're introduced to Courtney B. Vance.
Yeah, so he's like a sonar guy, and he's like real smart. And he uses his computer to like look at stuff, but he's also real good with his ears because he loves music. That's what we're told. We're like, oh, he likes music too, though, so his ears must be real good and refined.
Ooh.
Yeah. He's like, no, Pavarotti's like a tenor, and you're talking to really Pagliato.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
And anyways, this whole part on the Dallas was way different than the book. Everything else was pretty much the same as the book, but the stuff on the Dallas was very different.
It was just more to introduce us that there's going to be another sub in the movie.
Yeah, and
they
had to really simplify portions of the plot, even though they kept it pretty complex. The book is even more like intricate and weird with all the plots kind of flying around.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
And then we cut back on over to the Red October, and this is the scene where we're finally going to get the orders for what the mission is.
Right.
And Ramius, Connery, goes into his quarters, and guess who's there? A PO, political officer. Nobody likes him aboard any of these subs.
That's basically one of the big themes from our podcast is how universally everyone fucking hates the political officer.
Yeah. I mean, there's never been a movie where somebody's like, oh, good, I'm glad they're here.
Yeah.
So anyways, he dislikes this guy so much, he just straight up kills him.
Yeah. This is also weird because he just kind of like, he breaks the guy's neck. Basically, they read the orders. The orders are this war game stuff. And he breaks the guy's neck, and then he's like, oh shit. And he like throws some tea on the floor and then puts it back. I'm like, who would ever fucking believe that? There's just like randomly, I'm like, well, how did you spill that tea all the way over there?
Yeah.
I thought for sure, because anyways, I can't always talk about what the book did, but anyways. The book was better.
He slips in his own orders.
Yeah.
And then this part kind of threw me off. He takes the old orders and he burns them.
Wouldn't they be like, why does it smell like burning in here? Would you burn something in here?
Yeah. Oh, what are all these ashes?
Well, why do you have these ashes? And like, for my grief, all of my food turned to ashes in my mouth. Like, oh, right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I started the cremation process and I only got done with his toenail.
Right. I don't know. I thought the same thing. I was like, the whole place would smell like burning. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. Kind of odd.
Yeah. So anyway, so he made these new orders where it's like, we're going to sneak. It's actually a true mission. It's almost K-19-ish, right? Like, oh no, they believe the Caterpillar drive is totally fine. No big deal. We're going to actually sneak to the American coast and do training drills under their nose using the Caterpillar drill. Mm-hmm. So then to be like, fuck the Americans, right? And everyone's like, yeah, fuck the Americans, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And everyone's like, cool. Except for this one cook who's kind of being there like, that's weird. And he's kind of clearly a very shady character. And then Tim Curry, the doctor, is like, shouldn't we just turn back? Because this is pretty fucked up that guy's like head turned all the way around and because his neck was broken.
Yeah. Can I cut in with a wonderful Tim Curry clip I grabbed?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
For all those Tim Curry fans out there, if you're like me, you love Tim Curry. Yeah. And here it is. So unfortunately, Tim Curry did not do his famous laugh in this movie.
I know, dude. I was just
disappointing.
waiting for it.
He was actually kind of a Dumbo in the end. Like in the end, he's always just like, guys, shouldn't we not be doing this? Should we maybe do this? And then in the end, he's like basically like, right? Everything was pretty cool. And it's like, oh,
Right?
you're such an idiot.
He was just the hot guy in the movie. That's it.
Yeah, dude.
That's right.
That's sweet eye candy for all those ladies that guys drag to the movie.
Well, not just the ladies, Kyle.
Oh, okay.
Right. Let's not be closed-minded. But Sean Connery then goes to the bridge and kind of announces to everyone, like, this is our mission. We're going to, like, totally screw with the Americans. And
we're going to sit right off the coast of New York and conduct missile drills.
Yeah, and everyone's super jazzed about it.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, is the Dallas following them at this point? It is, right? They've already found them, right?
Well, so the Dallas, which is the U.S.
They started following because they heard the turbines or whatever.
Yeah, they were tracking the Red October, and then all of a sudden, it disappeared.
Right, so he announces the plan to the crew. They're like, oh, the Caterpillar's ready, turn it on. They switch it on. Everyone's singing like the national anthem of the Soviet Union. And
which is like a 10-minute long song.
Right, and there's only one person kneeling, and you're like, what's that about, man? Yeah. And but they turn and basically they disappear to the Dallas as they do this. And he's like, I could have sworn it disappeared, but I heard singing as it disappeared. So they're kind of freaked out on the Dallas of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And they have some ideas. They do think there might be something going on with some propulsion or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Jack Ryan goes talking to the submarine guy, and he basically says this. He's like, okay, we've tried to develop something like this in the past. It's called the Caterpillar drive. We couldn't get it to work. They apparently have. It's a first strike weapon, basically, because why else would you need something to sneak past all of the barriers necessarily? And why would it be going
right
now? Like, why would it have just launched? Because that was another thing that the Admiral told him, right? Like, it actually launched. So it's important you were here.
And then we cut on over to Russia, and Connery, in an extremely ballsy move, sent a letter to his superiors that just basically said, hey, I'm going to ignore your orders, and I'm going to defect to the U.S. and basically hand over this technology.
Yeah. And, well, yeah, I'm not even sure it was necessarily going to hand over the technology, right? That wasn't necessarily definitely the point.
But what else are you going to do?
You get rescued and scuttle the boat, or you set something to blow up the boat. I mean, it clearly wasn't end up being the case, but like, they could have done that. But yeah, so it all boils down to his feeling like he was disrespected, and he kind of gave his life to the Soviet Union, even though he was Lithuanian.
Yep.
And so, his like wife had died. In the book, they kind of mention his two sons also died, like in service as well. They gave their lives to the country. And, when his wife died, he felt like there wasn't any real acknowledgement. There wasn't any grief or help or people kind of being like, you're obviously going through a tough time or whatever. It was just all Soviet Union. And it kind of like steeled his reserve, saying, well, now I don't have anything left to connect me to Russia. So, Soviet Union. So it's time to jet. And he's basically collected together all these officers, because that's what's revealed. It's revealed all the officers on board are in leagues with him. And he kind of collected together all these officers who were A, willing to defect, and B, didn't really have any ties to Russia. So there wasn't any reason for them to like change their mind thinking of their sons or wives. They were all single men and officers that had trained under him. So very trusted people.
Yep. And after he sent that letter about his defection, the Russian Navy decided to send every single ship, after him to sink him pretty much. And so this alerted the Americans, because they said there were over 50 ships or something that set sail on. I mean, obviously they're tracking the Red October, and that's headed towards the U.S. So all these things are headed toward the U.S., puts people on alarm. Yeah.
And nothing in the Pacific. So that was a key detail for Jack Ryan, because he goes to the chief of staff, or the joint chiefs or whatever, the big meeting of all the people who advised the president about this shit. And basically Admiral Greer is like, you're giving the presentation. And he's like, say what? I am just Jack Ryan, analyst extraordinaire. Don't worry about it. But he goes in and basically presents all the details. And they're trying to figure out why is it, what's happening, or why is this boat heading towards the United States coast? Because it seems like a first strike thing. It seems like this guy is going rogue to blow up Washington with nuclear missiles.
That's what it looks like, but don't worry. Jack Ryan is so quick on his feet. He thinks, wait a minute. This guy is probably trying to defect.
Yeah. So because he knows him so well, this is one of the people he's had to study and make reports for the CIA about.
He's even met him at dinners.
He met him at a dinner. He knows that this is the exact date that his wife died a year ago. Mm-hmm. And he looks at all the people kind of on the boat and he's like, no, they're defecting. I'm confident in the fact that they are defecting. It's not a case of them striking because he has there's no reason to see in his profile to think that he's like so crazy pro-Soviet Union in this way to do like a first strike like this.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. He's a good candidate for defecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so anyways, one of the generals and him get into it, whatever. But one of them, the head guy, believes him and says, all right, I'm going to give you, 4 days or something to prove this. If not, like, it's your ass pretty much.
Yeah. And so they send him off to a aircraft carrier to basically try to, I don't know if it was necessarily to rendezvous, but kind of coordinate some of the efforts out there.
And at this time, we also do cut on over to another submarine commanded by Tupolev.
Yeah.
And that is Stellan Skarsgård, who is, like I mentioned, he's sweaty. This dude is sweating the whole time. It's great. And he's also smoking on the sub right here.
Yeah. A bunch of people smoking the subs.
I was pretty happy about that.
There's cigarettes everywhere. They were always offering each other cigarettes.
It's awesome.
And Jack Ryan was like, I don't smoke until the end, where he's like, fucking, I need a fucking cigarette, right?
Yeah.
Right, guys?
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, he's dead set on, they're going to go 105% to catch up with the Red October and take them out.
Yes, they are.
So anyways, the Dallas at this time is also, they keep on picking up this signal, this kind of like mechanical whirring noise that Courtney B. Vance, the sonar guy, has detected at like 4 different spots. And he kind of demonstrates how it's got to be man-made. So it must be something like a new propulsion drive.
If you speed it up, it kind of goes...
Yeah. So like they're not using their propellers or whatever. Like they're using this other thing in order to kind of try to evade. They have a new technology. He said, boom, boom, boom. Look at where it's going. And he maps it out and says, they're heading to the ridge, like the canyons in the middle of the Atlantic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also around this time on the Red October, Ramius has a meeting with all of his commanding officers. And it's kind of funny because they're like, hey, how'd that PO die? We're pretty sure you murdered him.
Yeah. Like, they're like, you murdered him.
And he tells him, oh, by the way, I also sent a letter to Moscow to let them know that we're defecting. And they look at him like, what the fuck, dude? Why would you do that?
Yeah, I can't remember if he did that in the book. I feel like he didn't. He just did it himself and then didn't mention it, kind of. He just, obviously people would come after them when they had the plot going. So why necessarily say I was the one who got people to come after me? Anyways, Tupolev's the closest. And that's the case here.
And that's a guy that he trained specifically.
Yeah.
But he is fairly confident that they can outsmart the Russian Navy because he basically trained all of them. But he even tells the guys, we got about a 1 in 3 chance.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill, even after they close the door, he's like, I don't think you should have done that.
Yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, they use this in the book. They use this to a much greater effect. All these plots are much more intricate in the book. Like the whole radiation tags, they send Tim Curry off as a kind of an excuse to get him out of the room. Like that all factors into a much more that's kind of used in how to convince the crew that there's a leak on the boat, and then they have to eventually scuttle the boat in this very intricate plot of like they had like people who constructed things on on payroll. I mean, basically within the conspiracy as well, helping them out and different things like that. But it's neither here nor there for this case.
Right.
So they're heading down the canyon and basically Dallas is like, well, if they're heading down the canyon because they have it super well mapped, we can't chase them. They're going to be much faster than us. So we'll head over to the end of the canyon and kind of catch them at that point.
Yep.
So they head over that way.
But the Red October, when they enter into the canyon, because they have it, like you said, specifically mapped out, they just want to hit these certain points at a certain time. Ramius thinks that's not good enough. They're going to fly through this thing.
Right.
And they do. They start taking off. And it gets a little dicey here.
It seemed like that was part of that was a plot to make the excuse for why the Caterpillar drive ends up failing at this point, right? Like, They have it where the caterpillar drive overheats and they have to stop it, and ends up being a saboteur, quote unquote saboteur, is on the boat.
Right.
Kind of stops.
Because somebody just totally cut all these wires to a cooling unit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. It turns out that it's all part of the conspiracy as well, to convince the crew that they have to scuttle the boat.
Yeah.
That there's a saboteur on board, but there's really not.
Right. Well, so when they start running loud, all of a sudden anti-air or anti-sub planes fly over and they drop torpedoes into the canyon. And we got one of them chasing the Red October.
Yeah.
And we get into some pretty fancy pants maneuvering here. Yeah. Everybody's on pins and needles, and Connery goes outside of the known course, and he just barely skirts this wall.
Yeah.
And he's able to do it fast enough where the torpedo can't react or something, and just slams into the canyon wall and totally misses them.
Yeah. And at this point, Jack Ryan has gotten onto his aircraft carrier, and they have no time for him because it's basically on the verge of war with Russia. And so he's like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'll rendezvous with Dallas myself. And just get me over there. And they're like, well, that would take a helicopter filled with gasoline. He's like, well, you have one over there. And so he heads out on this helicopter.
It's all right.
You are the military.
So hold on. First they say, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a jet is about to land on the carrier, crashes.
Yeah.
And then there's like a huge fireball, and then they just send him off in the helicopter.
Yeah,
that part made no sense.
It was a little weird. It seemed like it was just like, we got enough to deal with. Get this guy out of here. Like, we can't deal with it.
That had to be the only situation. Yeah. I mean, it was really odd.
And he flies out there, and eventually he does. They're like, fucking Dallas isn't going to surface for you, you jackass. But it does, and he does this also another fancy maneuver out of the helicopter to land inside that submarine.
Oh yeah,
well, outside the submarine, but then they bring him inside the submarine.
Yeah, they drop him, and the winds are they're blowing so hard that the helicopter is basically running on fumes. It's going to have to leave because they can't make him connect. He says, "Screw that," and he just lets go of his vest and falls in the water.
Yeah. And so Jack Ryan's there, and they are pretty much ready at this point from the U.S. side to blow the Red October out of the water. They're like, it's getting too close to the United States, kill it. But Jack Ryan convinces the captain, no, we got to make contact. We got to convince him or get a message to him to do it. And this guy's like, that's weird because this is a PG movie, but I got my dick out, and can't you tell that I'm the captain? And Jack Ryan's like, well, I got a special CIA license to pull my dick out. And like James Bond? And it's like, yes, like James Bond.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then he convinces him by kind of telling him how much he knows about the captain and how he's convinced that it's actually a case that he's giving up the submarine. Because he's like, he's going to do a crazy Ivan now, and it's going to be to starboard. And right then, he does a crazy Ivan to starboard.
Yep.
Yep.
And so they kind of make themselves known.
Yeah.
And then they both go up to periscope depth, and they're communicating via Morse code
and pings and shit. And basically, the captain, Sean Connery, realizes, oh, yeah, this is it. This is the time to do it. This submarine can help me do what needs to be done.
Yep.
But at that same moment, who's there? Fucking Tupolev, right? Well, I guess
not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
They basically determine at this point that they start heading away from the submarine, but they run it at 110% and have it so that the reactor fails.
Yeah, and they have a fake radiation alarm go off so they can get all the people who don't obviously want to defect off the sub, and they can be quote unquote rescued by the United States.
Yeah.
And then the Americans can make contact with them because they have a special little mini sub, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. They talked about it.
Yeah.
They're like, we got this. It can dock on any type of boat or whatever. No big deal.
Yeah. So
dock on a Russian boat.
So they sent that on out there. They hooked up. They got inside the sub.
Yep.
And things are very tense.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what's going to happen. The Americans come in with all their guns. Everybody's guns blazing. But
Jack Ryan's like, give me a cig. I got to smoke up real quick.
Yeah, they start smoking. And all of a sudden, they start getting shot at by someone.
Yeah, so apparently, according to Wikipedia, this was a secret KGB agent that was on the submarine. I didn't necessarily
they should have made that much more well known.
Because in the book, it was a son of a high-ranking Russian Politburo guy. So, he had reason, to be suspicious and not want to defect. So he stayed on the boat and then started this, trying to officially scuttle the boat, or actually scuttle the boat.
Yeah.
So they start shooting at him. They kill the guy, the Sam Neill, who all he wanted to do was live in Montana raising rabbits.
And have a very round American wife. That's what he said.
And two, in fact. One in Arizona, one in Montana, which would be frowned upon, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, he's Russian. I mean, whatever. You can do what you want, right?
Yeah, and they'd probably be like, well, he's Russian. Who's to know?
Yeah, I don't know what they do over there.
No.
So anyways, he dies, and then all of a sudden, so the guy who shot him runs off, and Tupolev now shows up, and it's funny because now we got enemies working together again. Seems to be a common thing.
They're high-fiving. Russia and America, high-fiving all day.
But it's funny because before the action starts going, they're trying to evade this stuff, and Connery's like, get that thing off my sub, and he's talking about the mini sub.
Yeah.
So they send that away.
It's like, someone's shooting at us. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Pretty much.
Yep.
We never see that guy again.
Yeah. So they start doing some fancy maneuvers and shit, and they're trying to get rid of out of torpedo range. Jack Ryan is like fist fighting some dude in like the reactor room, getting shot at and like,
getting real sweaty,
and then covered in like boiling water or some shit. I don't even know.
Oh man, yeah,
I don't know. So he fights them, kills that dude. They first evade the torpedo by going straight at it, which is like not necessarily
seems suicidal, right?
But then it turns out that it's because the torpedo isn't armed yet. Like they basically get so close to it that the torpedo wouldn't arm until like 4,000 feet or something. They get within 3,000 feet, and so their torpedoes just kind of like flutter away and like bounce off the submarine.
You think it would have made more noise? Because it was just like boom and then disintegrated.
Yeah, but then the next time they get shot at, they have to do much fancier maneuvers. So
because Tupolev comes out and he disarms that mechanism that they need.
Yeah, so then it's armed right when it leaves the tube. But like the Dallas comes in at one point and saves them by getting so close.
It totally throws a pick, man.
Yeah, and it kind of goes after them for a second, but then it comes back and is coming back at the Red October, and then they have to do a fancy. They kind of like move around and basically get the
they
attacking
shoot up out of the water.
Yeah, and they kind of come around and get Tupolev with his own torpedo.
Mm-hmm. They're able to do that. Also, around this time, a torpedo is dropped in by a helicopter or by the battleship.
It's basically exactly the same shot over again. Which is
weird. James Earl Jones is on the battleship now, and they need to make it look like they sank the Red October so all the survivors can say they did. But he detonates that thing way early, so it doesn't sink them. But then, now it's all covered up.
Yeah. Everyone, Tim Curry's got like a tear rolling down his face. He's like, thank God for our hero captain. Oh boy. And everyone's like, wow, you're real dumb, man.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, then after they've kind of like covered everything up, they've got rid of Tupolev, like asshole. They've got rid of the crew, those assholes. They are going into Maine, where Jack Ryan's like, yo, I grew up here. And he's like, it kind of reminds me of Lithuania. And then they high-five a whole bunch, and they stare deep into each other's eyes. And for a second, you're like, wait, what's happening here? But then it's like more of like a grandfather-y thing, where they like pat each other on the shoulder and like, we'll fish together someday. And then they
never did.
They say a poem about like Christopher Columbus, and he's like, welcome to the New World. And he winks at the camera. And there's a twinkle in his eye.
Great.
The end.
That's it.
Yeah.
The Hunt.
You guys make it sound so good.
It is, right? Yeah. It's basically, they should have just made the movie where we say the plot into a microphone and they play it over the actual shots of the film.
That'd be good.
Because we have been talking for what, 2 hours, 15 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Feels like it.
That'd be just narrating the movie. This is where Sam Neill's going to walk over to I think a computer and push a button.
Nope. Never mind. He's talking to Sean Connery. Yeah, sorry, I forgot this part.
Let me make up the dialogue here. Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Anyways, this was the greatest film ever made, right?
We should get into some ratings.
Oh,
ratings. Here I come and I don't want to go home.
Actually, I got a quick thing to say about that. That transitioned perfectly because there is a Beetlejuice crossover in this movie.
That's true. Alec Baldwin.
Well, and another actor, Jamie.
I know this. I know this. Michael Keaton played the president.
You're right.
We just didn't see
got it.
It was cut from the movie.
No, the one guy with the orange hair near the beginning, I recognized him immediately, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jones.
He's also a criminal.
Yeah, I was like, that's the guy from Beetlejuice, too.
He was arrested for child pornography.
Really?
Yeah.
In RL?
In real life, yeah.
Ah, well, all right, fans, listeners, you can probably donate to his
bring
cause.
us down.
So, probably has some bills he needs to pay.
That guy? Arrested? Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
He was in Ferris Bueller. That's how I recognize
He was.
him from.
Yeah, that's
the
how
principal.
I know. The principal from
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller. He was arrested, yes.
Dang.
Yep.
Well, shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah, so it's the director, and it's a kind of a arresting crossover with the director and him.
It's great. They can make a whole movie where they're just sitting in prison together, just talking about Hunt for Red October.
The good times.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyle,
As
that's
they
so
refer to
funny.
Oh.
He was also an Amadeus. Awesome.
Yes.
That was
we're
a
talking.
shock.
Zach, you got a soundboard over there?
No, that wasn't me.
That's the audience. We're podcasting in front of a live audience, Ben. Come
On
on.
the submarine. It's actually the rest of the crew of the submarine. There were 63 men.
Yeah. I'm like,
63 souls died that day.
why don't we have 64 people? Somewhere at 69 total.
Nice.
Oh, I like
You're really hitting it.
All right.
Oh, man.
Let's do some ratings here. Brom, what do you got, man?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Well, I really enjoyed. Well, first of all, we got a star-studded cast, and that lent itself to a lot of different storylines, and I liked just the pace that created. It was there was so much going on. Got right into the action. I haven't really seen any other Tom Clancy movies. So I don't know if that's kind of his theme, that it's kind of action-packed from start to finish, but it seemed like we kind of got into the story quickly, and it bounced around between all of the different, major characters, and ultimately had a very interesting and unique storyline. I didn't really necessarily know where the movie was going in terms of, is this going to go badly or go sideways? But ultimately, it was a really rewarding story that I really enjoyed. Just again, very unique from any of the other submarine movies we've watched too, which gives it a lot of credit. And again, you had a lot of the staples of a classic submarine movie, unlike some that we've watched where you don't even have a lot of footage on the sub. This one you had plenty of sub action. You had gunplay on the sub. You had talk of mutiny. You had Tim Curry's smoking hot body.
He technically had fire because he did light those things on fire.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. It wasn't the biggest fire, but
A little bit of everything here for someone that likes submarines or war movies.
was there a wrench? No wrench.
I don't think there was much wrench action.
There was
but
hammer action.
There was. And that was very disappointing because he's like, give me the hammer.
I thought for
Give me-
sure.
Give me
Right.
the wrench.
Yeah.
Come on. What do you need a hammer on a sub for?
Get out of here.
Oh, I got a small carpentry project I'm working on.
I'm sorry, I don't have any hammers. I have these 6 wrenches. You could have any of them.
Go on. Ben.
Regardless, I was happy to finally see this classic. This is one of those movies that I can check off of the list of movies I have to see. I think it's probably my third favorite. I'm going to put it behind Das Boot and Crimson Tide, but only just. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
All right.
Nice.
Amazing.
Solid rating. Who wants to go next? Screw it. I'll go next.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
All right. This movie. I won't do the Zach thing. I'll leave that up to you. Watched Hunt.
What do I do?
Nothing. All right. This movie was action-packed, like you mentioned, Ben. Star-studded cast. Visuals were great. All those underwater shots were done with miniatures in a room filled with smoke, and you would never know that. They look so good. And,
Oh, wow. That is kind of cool.
yeah, it's very cool. The behind-the-scenes stuff that you can watch on this movie is also very incredible. Connery was good. Alec Baldwin really shocked me. I was pretty surprised because most of the stuff you see him in, he's kind of like a goofy type guy. You know him from Team America and things like that.
Duh.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah. And James Earl Jones actually said in the behind-the-scenes stuff that Alec Baldwin was crazy. He's crazy good. He memorized all kinds of lines overnight, had no problem doing it. He even remembers his Russian lines still to this day. You should have seen cut back over to James Earl Jones. He's like, he still remembers that? He's like, how does he know? So he was surprisingly good. I Was pretty shocked at that. He was Baldwin in the 90s, man. He was also in that movie The Edge that we really enjoyed.
Oh, that's a great
Was that
movie.
the one with was that the one with the bear?
Yeah.
Yep. And the black guy that dies.
Sure.
Great.
And he fights Anthony Hopkins like hand-to-hand combat, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
After
Does he
the
fight him?
African
I can't
American
remember.
dies.
Probably.
Yeah. All right.
Or do they just yell at each other? I just remember that from the poster. Is they like yelling like
Maybe.
The Edge?
But this movie has everything that we're looking for. Has really tense action, a lot of sub action, really good visuals, explosions. Didn't get no depth charges. Kind of sad,
yeah.
but it's a 10.
Wow, a 10.
A 10.
So did we ever come to a consensus on what's the best possible score?
A 12.
12-incher, baby.
A 12er.
That's what I thought.
There's no 11 though. There's just a 10 and then a 12.
Well, but you could go above and beyond. You could give it a 12 and a limpet sticker.
Sure. Why not? Anyways, I'll go next. I found this movie, like, this is another one where I was like, okay, going into it, this is going to be a 10. I was like, this is going to be a 10. And then as I was watching, I was like, it's kind of flowing. The pace wasn't super there. It was kind of confusing. It wasn't good as a book. I actually think it's like, it doesn't do well if you read the book and then watch the movie. Like they had to simplify certain things to the point where they kind of gloss over some of the complications with what they kind of do with it. And the plot is much less intricate from the American side of things. Like they had all kinds of stuff with spies claiming that the letter that was sent to the Russian guy was actually sent by an Israel Masood agent, and Israel was trying to get the Russian military to assume that their submarine was going rogue by giving them wrong information of their mission, but also sending this letter.
That would be very complicated.
So then Russia was convinced, was kind of scratching their heads being like, but is he actually going, is he actually defecting or is he being tricked by Israel? And so they had to kind of sit there for a second and be like, oh, is Israel trying to get us to blow up our own new technology? Like shit. And so there was much more intricacy in all the plot and stuff like that. And so it didn't necessarily help this movie to kind of take a step back and be like, oh, it's much simpler, but yet still confusing to someone who didn't necessarily, if you didn't read the book, it could be a very confusing movie of kind of understanding who is who and what is what and how things are all being put together. So I think it kind of came in a little under what I had expected it to come in, but I still was very entertained, enjoyed it quite a bit, liked all the acting, liked the writing, liked the visuals quite a bit. Some of the stuff at the end in terms of the fighting, like the torpedoes and some of the green screen, like when they're floating down the river and clearly the green screen's just not very good. That's kind of not great, but otherwise kind of top-notch stuff. So I was going to come in at a 9.
A 9.
So I thought it was going to come in at 10.
Pretty good so far.
I had to take it back a little, just a second, back to a 9.
All right.
All right.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
To go on from Jamie there. So Jamie, tell the viewers and listeners, for the people that are actually watching us right now, but the listeners, the book. So I have a couple questions. Did reading the book impact your score of a 9? And would you recommend the book to the listeners?
I think if I didn't read the book, this might have come in at a 9.5. It kind of went backwards because of some of the things that I sat there being like, ugh, I wish they didn't change that. I wish it was different than this. I thought Courtney B. Vance's character was much worse in the movie than in the book. That sonar guy was kind of the all-star. He was really the true hero. He basically finds the Red October without anything. He doesn't have a computer or anything. He basically shits on the computer all day and is like, I'm the best. And he's like, I was listening to this shit and there's something going on over here. He basically finds it out of nowhere and they just start following it without really anything. So he's a super genius, and that's a much cooler character than this guy who's I'm working with this computer, cool. And
But it does have that scene where they say, "Oh, you have a $40 or $40 million computer, and you come up with this."
Yeah,
He's
I know, but it was
But then he's like, "Don't worry,
yeah,
I got you, bro."
Okay.
And so I don't know. I would definitely recommend the book. I think Jack Ryan as a character is very interesting. It's funny because that was the first book with Jack Ryan in it, and yet in that book, they basically start you in the middle of his life. He's already a hero. He's an American hero because he foiled a terrorist plot in London, but that wasn't even written about at the time that Red October was released. So in the book, they kind of set it up almost for a prequel. He's already famous within the CIA for having done this thing as like an analyst, but you've never read that kind of stuff. So it's interesting from that point of view.
Recommended book and a recommended movie.
Yeah, I would say so, but I would watch the movie before I read the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zach, I read a third of the book, and then I realized I was reading, and I stopped.
You got that far. Well, how many pages is that, Kyle? How long is the book?
I think it was like, was it like 300 pages, something like that?
Maybe a little longer than that. I can't remember.
I got to roughly like just over 100.
Okay. 300 was total. 100 was a third. Got it.
Yeah. Yes, 900-page submarine book.
I don't know. All right. I'm ready for this. I'll hop in with my rating. So I'm going to open this up with, again, we watched the movie The Hunt for Red October.
Sure.
Here's my favorite line of the movie.
Captain, if the countermeasure doesn't work... Shut up. Torpedo has reached countermeasures.
That's it. That's. I liked hearing Sean Connery yell "shut up," and
That's pretty great.
I went back and watched that like 5 times. It just cracked me up. Now maybe that was because I had 5 beers, but I laughed a lot at that.
What's your? Can you do an impersonation of that scene?
Shut up.
It's pretty good.
And then the sound effects were really sweet, which I think they got an Oscar for sound editing. But it was awesome. I loved like hearing that sound when the initial torpedo was targeting them. It was just awesome. So that was great. Next. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to take a moment and say my favorite scene as a part of my rating. So that was my favorite sound clip. My favorite scene was towards the end when Sean Connery, maybe like the third, I think it was the beginning of the third act, when Sean was talking about missing the piece of fishing, right? You guys remember that when he was in his bunk talking to Neill?
Sam Neill.
Yeah. And that music that was playing, I loved it. I was all about that. It was building up the intensity.
It's a great scene, man.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Great song. Yeah. I mean, I think it was a Dave Matthews song playing, right?
Yeah. The hunt for Red October.
I thought the music there didn't really fit the scene because he was like, having that solemn moment, but I forget what was about to happen. Weren't they about to get attacked or something?
Exactly. They were like, I think, weren't they about to get the torpedoes locked onto him or something?
Yeah. He has to come out of his bunk real quick and be like, oh shit.
Yeah. It was one of those moments when you're just sitting there talking about life, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this impending doom's about to start happening. I liked it.
Sounds like a Tuesday for me.
So, I loved this movie. I've seen it a lot. This was probably my 4th or 5th time watching it today. And
is that why your girlfriend left early?
Fiance, Kyle, come on.
Oh, sorry. No disrespect. Like Zach, 3 times is enough.
Wait, the movie?
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Okay. So, zing. So, I mean, all you got to say is Sean Connery, James Earl Jones, Tim Curry. That's it. That makes for a perfect movie. That's awesome. So, I'm going to give it what did you give it, Kyle?
A 10.
I think the best score I've given this year was to the Life Aquatic. I think I give that an 11.
Not allowed.
I'm going to give this 11 a 10.5.
Also not allowed, but we'll allow it.
A 10.5?
Yeah, man. This is a great movie. This is like, I feel like if anybody ever in the world says, oh, look, a submarine podcast, I'm going to listen to it. They expect to see The Hunt for Red October in that podcast, and it's like a staple. So
you're right, actually. We should definitely delete this episode so we don't have it anymore. Then they'll be like, wait, I have to listen to all of this until they do Hunt for Red October.
They're already listening to 44 beforehand. No, I agree, though, Zach. If somebody is asking for a submarine movie to watch,
like
it's this one.
Yeah, like it's just
if you want a good one, like I mean, granted, I love Das Boot, but not everybody's going to sit down and watch a nearly 4-hour German movie.
Yeah, I guess if you're trying to capture someone just in general, You're not trying to sway one way or the other. Crimson Tide is a certain type of audience. Run Silent, Run Deep, you got to be okay with watching like a black and white, older movie or whatever. And then you have these other ones. This is kind of falls in the middle. That Suit is a million hours long miniseries.
This is the gateway drug of sub movies.
It is. It's a catch-all. I mean, it's got big names. It's great. Everything about I love this movie. I love the people in it. It's I mean, it's Tim Curry, people. Come on.
Wait, actually, are we sure it's not Phantom, though?
Oh. I figured you're going to be a big Stellan Skarsgård fan, Zach, with how much you love the girl with the dragon tattoo.
No, I know.
I
know. Girl with the dragon tattoo is amazing. He's the bad guy in it, serial killer. Spoiler alert. But
playing that Enya song.
Right?
That's a great scene.
Sail away. It is. That's like my favorite scene of the movie.
Because it's so just like you can tell that guy's a psychopath,
I saw that movie, I think, by myself, and then I got drunk the next night and played that song with all you guys, except Jamie. And then
I wasn't there.
And then we went to see it the night after that, I think.
we went and saw it in theaters because I was like, that's why you're playing this song. I was like, awesome. Zach, why are we partying listening to Enya right now? That doesn't make sense.
Right?
We'll all party at your wedding. We'll all party to it.
Dude, that Enya song.
Can't wait till I'm invited to your wedding. Thank you.
We'll see how things go, Jamie.
Looking forward to it.
We'll see how things go. The last thing I'll talk about, because I won't talk until my next segment, Zac Facts. I want to talk about the NES game. I don't know if anybody else has information on the Nintendo Entertainment System's game, The Hunt for Red October, but this was my first opening to this. Like, I was about 4 or 5 years old, right? The game came out. I had a Nintendo Entertainment System. I was 4 or 5 years old. I got the game The Hunt for Red October. I got it on my system, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I got that from my uncle. And then he gave me the game, The Hunt for Red October, to play it on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it was in the winter, or maybe the spring or the fall or the summer. I can't remember. And then when I got the game,
season?
Yeah, it was some season, of a year. And when I was 4 or 5, with the Nintendo Entertainment System, with the game, The Hunt for Red October. I remember
where's this going?
I remember sitting with my dad and I was asking him about what the game was, right? Because it's like I'm like 4 or 5 years old playing on the Nintendo Entertainment System, The Hunt for Red October, and I was asking him, and I'm like, what is this game? And he told me it was a book. And I'm like, oh, but I never read the book.
What's the name of the book?
The book was The Hunt for Red October.
Oh.
And, because my dad had the book, you see. He had the book. So he read the book, and I played the game. So he read the book, I played the game, The Hunt for Red October, on the Nintendo Entertainment System. But the first time I turned it on, I was on my couch, and I was sitting on my couch, and we had some snacks. I was 5 years old, playing The Hunt for Red October on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I didn't know what I was playing at first, but I finally got the game started. It eventually turned on, right? But remember, on the Nintendo Entertainment System, these games, like The Hunt for Red October, were in cartridges. And you had to blow in those cartridges to get them to play, right? Because they got dusty. So I remember blowing in this cartridge to get the game going. But eventually the game finally started, The Hunt for Red October on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I remember my dad and I both looking at the screen, and then the game logo came up. And I'll never forget what my dad said. It was amazing.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Good Lord.
Don't cut any of that, Kyle.
That was like 8 minutes long.
All right. About 50 minutes in, Alex, you have a rating for this.
I'm going to go just a little bit higher with the rating. I'm going to do just a 10.6 because I really liked it. It's really good. This is one of the movies I also grew up watching quite a bit. I think I've said that about several videos that we've already done here, but this was definitely one of them. Obviously, I don't have a problem understanding the plot of the movie, but if Jamie thinks you got to read the book to understand it, that's fine, but I get it. Some other things, though, that hadn't really been caught up on or talked about was just there's a whole bunch of like little one-line jokes in here that kind of just make me laugh and chuckle. I always really liked when they were trying to get Jack Ryan onto the submarine and the helicopter, and the guy's talking about the turbulence or whatever, that it wasn't that bad, and that they threw up all over the first helicopter before. I always thought that was really funny. And I also really liked when he's trying to send out a Morse code, the captain of the Dallas, I think, he says, my Morse is really bad. I could be sending the Playmate, whatever. What is it called?
Dimensions.
Yeah,
the dimensions of the Playmate of the month.
Yeah, I laughed at that. Other than that, I really like the movie. I always have. This is one of my top 3 favorite submarine movies, as I've said for a while now.
The start of how this all started.
Yeah.
Wow. Have we hit all 3 by this point?
Oh yeah.
Crimson Tide, Phantom,
No.
What was the first one?
Phantom, K-19, and this.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
There it is.
Wow.
Yep.
There it ends. Now it ends.
There it is.
You guys. Good Lord.
All right.
All right, man. Let's get into some trivia here.
Get some trivia. There's some great ones in this. I didn't even get to go through all of the trivia on IMDb, and do yourself a favor. There's some really great ones, particularly about Sean Connery and how he's a madman. So I'm going to start out with that one, which is... After consulting with the wardrobe and makeup departments behind the director John McTiernan's back, Sir Sean Connery arrived on set for his first day of shoots with his hairpiece incorporating a ponytail. Many years later, once Connery's potential influence had greatly waned, McTiernan stated in an interview with Sight and Sound magazine that he was fucking livid with Connery. And that he tried to use his considerable heft with the studio going over his head to try to get the ponytail to stay. But after the first day of shooting, everyone couldn't stop laughing at how ridiculous it looked. And so he finally agreed to not do it. And this gets back to the next thing, which was $20,000 were spent on Sean Connery's toupee for the film, which probably means
Are you serious?
toupees plural because of the first one that they had to scrap and then make a new one. Yeah.
Does he often wear a toupee? I thought that was just his hair.
He was already bald at this point. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good looking toupee.
It's a very good looking toupee.
Should be
it's like,
for $10,000.
It's like Nick Cage, right? Nick Cage is actually bald. I don't know if you knew that.
No, he is not.
He is. He wears toupees. It's unbelievable that long, luxurious, flowing locks are not natural.
Well, Con Air does not look natural, but
or Next, or any of the other films that for some reason he has stringy, weird, long hair. Yeah,
that's not real.
No, not real. So, anyways, the fighter crashing onto the flight deck was actually stock footage from guess what year?
47.
1951. The particular aircraft was piloted by official test pilot George Chamberlain Duncan, who was alive at the time that the film was released. Duncan survived the crash with minor burns, and after a few months, he was back flying. Alec Baldwin accepted the role of Jack Ryan because Harrison Ford turned it down. Cast member Sam Neill also benefited from Ford's refusal 3 years later by being cast in the lead role of Jurassic Park, which was first offered to Harrison Ford.
You know who else was supposed to be in that role?
I don't know. You?
Kevin Costner.
Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah, they mentioned him in the...
I'm joking. That wouldn't
Beneath the Surface.
Okay, due to his obligation to this film, director John McTiernan had to pass up directing Die Hard 2. So you can thank this film for that.
Ooh.
James Earl Jones is the only actor to reprise his role in the first 3 films. So this, Patriot Games, and Clear and Present Danger. He's in all 3 as the same character. This is a sad one. During filming in 1989, the USS Houston, which doubled for the USS Dallas in certain scenes, snagged the tow cable between the commercial tugboat Barcona and a barge, sinking the tugboat 10 miles off Long Beach, California. 1 crewman drowned in the accident.
Damn.
Yep.
Rip.
Kevin Costner turned down the role of Jack Ryan in order to make Dances with Wolves. Obviously, a giant mistake considering it won Best Picture and he won Best Director for it. But obviously, huge mistake not doing this film.
He directed that?
What, Dances with Wolves?
Yeah.
Yeah. He won Best Director.
There we go.
Yeah. He did end up being in a Jack Ryan film, Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, starring Chris Pine as the character Thomas Harper. Scott Glenn and Alec Baldwin took an overnight trip aboard the USS Salt Lake City, commanded by Commander Thomas B. Fargo. Glenn based his portrayal of Bart Mancuso on Fargo.
You know what's pretty cool about that, actually, is when they were on that trip, Fargo told all the crewmen, you treat Scott Glenn as captain, so if you report it to me, you also report it to him.
Yeah.
And then unless there's anything really top secret, he's like, then I'll probably have to ask you to, leave for a second, but then you can come back.
Yeah. Same thing happened with Sean Connery. He did an overnight on a different submarine, and he was also treated as commander and got to be the commander on the bridge during certain times of their, like, when they were out in sea.
It's got to be a cool experience.
Pretty cool. I'd do it.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Who wouldn't?
Here's a long list of people who were considered for Jack Ryan, and some of these are hilarious, but Mel Gibson, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Michael Keaton.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Yes. Love
Kurt
Michael
Russell.
Keaton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems a little old, but I guess maybe not at this point.
Dude, this is like right after Big Trouble in Little China.
That's true. Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Sylvester Stallone.
No.
John Travolta.
No.
No.
Val Kilmer.
Yes.
Here, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Not now.
Bill Paxton.
No.
No.
The Sways. Patrick Swayze.
No.
Yes.
Stephen Lang.
Who is that?
We've watched him in a different film. Anyways, he was also Stonewall Jackson in Gods and Generals. That's how I know him.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah,
Probably
just
not.
go with a no.
Jeff Bridges.
No.
Yes.
No.
Ron Perlman.
As Jack Ryan.
Hellboy himself?
Richard Gere.
No.
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 Michael Nori. I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
What about Christopher Lambert, a.k.a. the Highlander?
No.
No.
All right, so I wanted to do something different. Like, you obviously went through a whole bunch of people, thumbs up, thumbs down. I did want to do one quick thing that I want to do a little different than the normal, like, oh, would this be person good, or who would this be good, or whatever. I wanted to do, like, football positions. Who in the cast would play what position? So who's the quarterback of this film? Who do you want as quarterback? You think you got Alec Baldwin as the quarterback? Sean Connery
Yeah.
old, you thinking? Where's Sean Connery playing then?
The head coach.
Oh, interesting.
That's good, Ben.
I was outside the box.
Good.
What about Sam Neill? Where's he?
Tight end.
He's
Still
kind of
smaller
small. I was
tight
thinking
end,
maybe
wouldn't
like
you
a tailback.
Or slot receiver, maybe? Something like that?
Oh, so we're going off of physical attributes? Okay.
Or whatever. Whatever you
Yeah.
want. I was
Yeah.
doing it kind of like, where does he fit?
James Earl
Where
Jones
does his
is a
confidence
defensive
feel? Where do you
nose
think he's
tackle.
doing?
Water boy then, because he's too small to be on a field. Same
James
with
Earl
Baldwin.
Jones.
Scott
What about
Glenn's
James Earl
our.
Jones?
He's too fat to be on the field. So
No, dude. He's O-line.
Lineman, yeah, for
lineman,
sure.
Kicker.
coach, lineman, coach. He's too old.
Kicker.
Too
Did you say
old.
kicker. James Earl Jones is the kicker.
I said that, yeah.
What about Courtney B. Vance?
wide
Play,
receiver.
he can
Wide
play any
receiver.
spot, technically.
Because you know he's going to be fast.
Yep.
Who else was in this movie?
Dude, come on. Tim
Stellan
Curry.
Skarsgård.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry's quarterback.
He's kicker, right?
No, he's quarterback.
I feel like Tim
for
Curry's
sure.
kicking that ball.
Linebacker.
And what about Ed Harris? Where's he going?
Ooh, definitely a linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
He's
middle
crushing,
linebacker, dude. Up
Crush.
the middle every single play.
Yeah, crush Alec Baldwin every fucking play.
Yeah.
All right.
Although James Earl Jones would be defending him, man. You never know how that's gonna go.
Yeah, it is tough because I don't want to denigrate the great James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Even Ed Harris might have some
Where did we
difficulty
put
with that.
Scott Glenn?
Oh, we didn't even put him
Slot
on there.
receiver, probably.
Yeah, I'd say
Maybe
he's
something
got a pretty thin build. He'd have to be a receiver.
probably.
So actually, one of the interesting things with this movie is when James Earl Jones finally came on board, that's when they started getting more of the large actors. People started paying attention to this movie because they're like, that guy is really famous and great. I want to be involved in this movie.
And so I do have one more. I kind of skipped over it, but now I'm looking at it and it actually is very interesting. The USS Louisville was used also as a stand-in for Dallas along with that other submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually the first boat to perform a war patrol since World War II during Operation Desert Storm. She was also the first submarine to launch a Tomahawk missile in combat.
Really?
Yeah, during that operation as well.
That'd be nuts.
All right, so Phantom Zone, we can do pretty quick.
Engage the Phantom.
Phantom's engaged, sir.
We've done this a whole bunch of times, but Sean Connery is obviously in one of the greatest films ever made. Say it, Kyle. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh,
You didn't
there
say
you
it with
go.
me. Anyways.
Entrapment.
Right. And so Mr. Jekyll in that film is played by Jason Fleming, and he's in Below, which we've also seen, starring Johnny Depp. And in that is Matthew Davis, who's in Pearl Harbor, and then in that's our boy, Billy Fichtner. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, easy
And
breezy.
right to Phantom.
No big deal.
All righty.
Yeah.
Some time for some subs worldwide. It's subs world wide. So we're closing out Cold War movie month, and I don't know if I've already done this one or not, but if we have, I couldn't find it in my notes. We're going to cover the Russian Typhoon.
Ooh.
This is the largest submarine ever built. It's the one that they're using in the Red October. As we saw, it's pretty big, pretty spacious.
Wait, it's bigger than that French one?
Yeah, it's huge. These things are massive.
Or they just say it was like as big as an aircraft carrier?
That other one was the most expensive one built.
Oh. It's French.
Yeah, goodness. Just spending money like they're earning it. So this is also an extremely expensive submarine, and some people say that it could be responsible for bankrupting the Soviet Union.
I feel like that's been thought about recently.
Yeah.
They talked
maybe.
about the military ramp up wasn't really all that huge. In
Oh, really?
contributing to it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm saying that. Because it is in all the history books, exactly that, where like building those types of things was what put them into debt and seemingly was contributing to the fall of the Soviet Union.
Interesting. So for some of the specs on this, length, it's 574 feet long, which there are subs comparable length, but this thing is really wide. For speed at the surface, it can cruise along at 22 knots.
Wow.
Submerged, 27 knots. Can go down to a test depth of 1,300 feet. Has 2 nuclear reactors that each generate 49,600 horsepower. Holds 160 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a few. Also holds 20 R-39 Sturgeon SLBMs. But now there's only one of these left, and it's just a test platform, and it holds a single R-56 Bulava missile. The Endurance...
So, can I ask, what happened to the other ones? All sunk?
No. Well, all right, so there's 2 that are like on their way maybe to be scrapped, but I don't think anything's been decided or there's information on what's happened to them at this time.
Do you think they'll let them become museums?
I would really hope so.
That'd be great.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So for endurance, they can go for 120 days. So, like I said, these are the biggest subs ever built. They have some fancy amenities, including a gym,
Nice.
a sauna,
Nice.
and a swimming pool.
Nice. We definitely need to get a Harris on one of those.
Yeah.
Get that sauna going.
So the reason that it's so large is because it has multiple pressure hulls, and they are designed so that if one portion of the sub is damaged, you can potentially save another portion of the sub. Increases your chances of survival. They're also very large because they had to hold those SLBMs I mentioned, which are effing heavy. So the R-39s are twice as heavy as United States Trident missiles. Actually more than twice as heavy. They weigh 185,000 pounds apiece. They are 53 feet long, 7.9 feet in diameter, have a range of 5,200 miles. They're crazy.
How many people do you think you'd need to lift one of those?
I mean, you need a good crane, tell you that.
Yeah, probably a pretty good crane. And then if that crane falls over, you need an even bigger crane to pick up that crane. That
Exactly.
also has a missile on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if that one goes over, you just got a pile of cranes laying around. You got a mega crane coming in to pick all that up.
You got to.
Be great. So because they were so large and designed to hold so much weight, there was actually talk about turning the existing Typhoons after the collapse of the Soviet Union into shipping boats so they could send supplies, oil, and whatever underneath the polar ice. But that didn't happen. So there was also talk about modernizing them because these things were so great. But ultimately it was decided that, wow, that's really expensive and we can actually just build the Borai class for cheaper. So the very first one, which is the one that is still in service today as a test sub, is the Dmitry Donskoy. It's probably not right.
Wow.
It was laid down in 1976, commissioned in 1981. So all the other ones have been scrapped, or they're like not really knowing what's going on with them.
They're just hiding somewhere.
Yeah. There's even a documentary on the scrapping of TK-13 on National Geographic's Break It Down, which is pretty interesting. The scrapping process took 2 years. It's not just where, you see them put a car in a crusher and crush it.
Yeah.
That'd be funny, though.
Yeah,
why did we film that documentary? And then there's also another documentary available about typhoons called Mission Invisible. It's like an hour, 20 minutes. And I'll post a link to that. It's got a YouTube video. And also some of the stuff they were talking about there, and it's really interesting when they're loading it up with the supplies. They were taking 5 tons of bread, 330 pounds of chocolate, dozens of sides of beef, 720 bottles of wine, and 242 pounds of caviar.
Wow.
Sounds like a good time on the typhoons.
It does.
How much wine?
720 bottles.
God.
That's almost as much as you're going to have at your wedding that I'm invited to.
We're going for 800.
Oh, outclass that typhoon. It's classy joint. I do want to jump in real quick and just do all rights reserved to, just that mega crane film that we just detailed. So I don't want anyone to steal it.
Mega crane. I love that.
Also, if The Rock is listening, mega crane.
Ooh, he'd be a good crane operator in a movie.
Yeah, and then he has to run up the crane, and it's actually turns out because it's such a huge crane, he's actually having to run several miles up the crane.
Is the twist that the crane's actually just his arm the whole time?
No.
Oh.
It's not.
People's elbow.
All right.
Anyways.
Alex, what type of sub news you got for us, man?
You guys think I was actually looking up news? Okay.
Quiet week?
There's nothing ever exciting in the submarine world. Anyways,
I thought that was it.
All right, on to Brom.
I did a quick couple little looks around, and I guess Brazil just laid down their first nuclear submarine, so they're part of the club now too. So welcome along, Brazil. According to the article I read, they've had other submarines, but not nuclear. But they said that this should help protect their borders and sovereignty, which I didn't know they were having issues with that.
Because so many people are trying to invade Brazil, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most people are trying to get out of there, so maybe the submarines are to keep people in. I don't know.
Did we ever mention the fact that Argentinian sub was found?
Several times.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, because I did want to make sure that people knew that we canceled the interview we had with the defense minister. So he turned back. He made it up here, but then I told him get out of here.
Yeah,
it's already found.
And no, we will not validate your parking.
No. I'm also seeing some other. I'm seeing Australia names new attack submarine the Attack.
Yeah, I just saw that. That was going to be my next article, so thanks for taking that one out.
Sorry, I thought you were
good. Nope, finish it up.
Sorry.
Finish it up.
Stepping on people's grass.
I didn't know. I'm just saying. I'm looking at the news as well.
I'll look up some news.
Yeah,
Why not? Let's all look up news.
See? Now you guys can all do this. There you
Outrageous behavior. Spain shadows UK Royal Navy nuclear sub near Gibraltar. All right.
There it is.
Sputnik International.
That's the news site?
I guess. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
SputnikNews.com.
All right, Alex, you got any other news?
Let's see here. The U.S. Navy allowed the Philippine Navy to come and tour a U.S. submarine. So I would suspect that means Philippines are lagging a little bit behind, even further. But this makes sense because I think Brazil came and toured one of the U.S. submarines about 20 years ago. So I would suspect in another 20 years, Philippines will have their first nuclear submarine.
In 20 years, you think?
Yep.
Okay. Just checking.
Well, once again, Philippines, island nation, they got to protect their sovereignty and lands as well. And
2038, here we come.
And then last but not least, Pete Davidson has deleted all of his social media accounts.
That's true. Noted submarine captain Pete Davidson.
Great.
Yeah, and so there's also there's some movie stuff. Godzilla King of the Monsters had like something released where it showed Godzilla
that movie looks awesome
with a submarine. So hopefully we'll have a submarine in that film. And then obviously Aquaman is coming out. I think it's this week, right? Or is it? Yeah, it's this week. It's coming out and it has a bunch of submarines in it. It's like submarine all over the place. His main bad guy is on a submarine.
Good. And
then 2 weeks ago, Das Boot, the new miniseries was released.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it's TV. So it's a mini.
So it might be a
miniseries.
mini sub episode.
Could be, but I think it's like an 8 episode or 6 episode TV series.
Sweet.
So even longer in the end, probably.
Good. All right. Well, good stuff, Alex. Thanks for keeping us up to date. Brom, what do you got, man?
Tube 3 ready to fire, sir.
Commence the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Give it to me.
All right, well, for this week's countdown, with us being in Cold War movie month, I got a little callback to when we were in Japanese movie month and we had our top 5 Japanese fun facts. How about top 5 Soviet Union fun facts?
Ooh,
nice.
Digging this.
And these are real fun, guys. We're going to start with number 5. In Soviet Russia, all the way back in 1933, they dumped 6,200 people on an island in Siberia and left them with only flour for food, a small amount of tools, and no shelter. A month later, about 4,000 of them were dead.
fun fact.
Wow.
You also you need to start those off with the correct accent.
What's that?
Well, you said in Soviet Russia. I feel like it'd be in Soviet Russia.
In Soviet Russia.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Fun facts.
So,
Fact you.
Real quick, Ben. So, what happened to the other 2,000?
The other 2,200, I don't know. I don't even know why these people were dropped on an island in Siberia. I don't know if they were criminals or what, but that's just what my sources tell me.
Wow.
I'm into it.
It's Soviet Russia, so I could see them just doing it as an experiment.
Just 'cause?
Yeah. Next one here, we got number 4. As you may or may not know, Tetris was created in the Soviet Union by Alexei Pajitnov in 1984. But the rights were owned by his employer, the Soviet Union. So he did not get any royalties on his game until 1996.
Well, I was going to say that game didn't really take off, did it?
Not
nobody's
really.
ever really heard of it.
Little unheralded game. If you're ever interested in a puzzler, check it out. But number 3,
Tetris or Dr. Mario? Which one are you going for?
My
don't know if
brother
I've
would
ever
say
actually
Dr.
played.
Mario. I always thought Dr. Mario was pretty good, but I heard a guy giving a review on it recently, and he said it was a shit game. I'm like, oh, I thought people just unanimously loved Dr. Mario.
Dang.
Yeah.
I've actually never played it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd probably go Dr. Mario.
Kyle, you're stupid.
I know, so I guess it's Tetris for me.
It's un-American.
Dude, Alex and I played a lot of Tetris sophomore year of college. A
Yeah.
lot of Tetris.
Oh, yeah.
It was good times.
It was. Hey, back then it was ranked the number 2 greatest game of all time. I don't know where it's at now, but
Probably
What was number
What was
1?
number 1? Yeah.
Donkey Kong? Mario?
I don't know. I could try to figure it out.
Mortal Kombat if you watch Billy Madison. Regardless,
Here's a nice piece. Oh.
Number 3, a Soviet executioner personally killed 7,000 Polish officers over a 28-day period during World War II.
God.
He worked 10 hours a night and averaged one person every 3 minutes. And he personally accounted for almost 1/3 of the K-10 massacre.
What's it? What?
That's just work. That's solid work ethic right there.
Yeah, the Soviets ended up denying this Holocaust and blamed it on the Nazis.
Wait.
One man, when you said over a 28-day period.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He killed one person every 3 minutes.
No, you said this is, they blamed it on the Nazis, though. So this was after they formed in 1942, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Number 2, this one, okay, we're actually getting into fun territory now, okay? We got some of the tongue-in-cheek fun facts out of the way. Number 2, the Soviets made J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit into a movie in 1985 with the full name, The Fairy Tale Journey of Mr. Bilbo Baggins, The Hobbit. The full movie is available on YouTube.
Nice.
Really?
Is it live action or animated?
I don't know. I do intend to check it out, though, because it sounds hilarious.
What was it called again? The Fairy Tale what?
The Fairy Tale Journey of Mr. Bilbo Baggins, The Hobbit.
There it is.
There it is.
Do you ever hear the story of who was supposed to be, or who wanted to be, adapting the Fellowship of the Ring the first time through?
Mm-mm.
It was the Beatles.
Oh.
John Lennon and Paul McCartney would have been.
Really?
Yeah. Would have been Frodo and Sam, and then the other Ringo and whatever
Merry and
would
Pippin?
be
Gollum.
Merry and Pippin. Yeah. It'll be the Hobbit.
Gollum.
Everybody's Gollum.
George Harrison's just Gollum for some reason.
Yeah.
Last one. Let's make this a little participatory fun fact. So pay attention here, guys. The Soviet Union had an internationally televised singing competition, much like American Idol or The Voice. But viewers didn't really have phones in the Soviet Union. Very few citizens had phones. What do you guys think they would do to vote for their favorite singer while they were watching the broadcast?
Shoot something up in the air.
Turn on their lights.
I'd say a telegraph.
Alex, you want to venture any guess?
I'm just going to say they had to mail something in.
Okay. It's a good guess. Very good guess. Jamie had the best guess. Did you read this somewhere?
No. I was just trying to think of what they might do if like no one had it. People are sitting in their homes. Maybe you turn on lights and then you check how bright like the area got or something.
Oh, okay. Well, you're in the ballpark. They would turn their lights on and off. If they liked if they liked a song, they would turn them on. If they didn't like the song, they would turn the lights off.
Yeah. So then you check how bright the
power
area is.
spikes were recorded by the State Energy Company, and the reports were mailed to the station to announce the winner.
Perfect time to get your marijuana farm going too.
Yeah.
And that is top 5 Soviet Union fun facts.
That one is a very fun fact.
That was spectacular.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't wait for those sound effects not to be recorded on the thing. So it just like you have to add them in later.
Great.
It's like way extra editing for you.
Nope, not doing that. All right. Everybody's favorite.
Zac Facts time. So we got this week, we're in the ballpark for The Hunt for Red October. It's the movie we watched. So we have 4 facts for you fact fiends out there. The number 1 fact of the week is The Hunt for Red October might be what Sean Connery is best known for. That's a fact.
That is a fact.
I could see it.
Yeah, he might be.
Yeah.
He could be.
Now, let's take a step back away from the movie here. Alec Baldwin is in this movie.
Yep.
So, Alec Baldwin has some brothers. I believe there's 4 Baldwin brothers. Yeah. So, Alec's brothers, Daniel and William, say that this is their favorite movie for their brother Alec. Right. Steven gave no comment.
Right. Well, Steven's a crazy person. So.
Yep.
Is Steven the one that was in Firefly?
No. Get out of here. It's not even a Baldwin brother.
Isn't it?
Steven's he's in Biodome, right?
Right. No, he's thinking Adam Baldwin. He's
Adam Baldwin. So he's not one of the actual Baldwins?
No, he's not one of the brothers.
No.
Way to go, Ben.
I guess if you're just born with the name Baldwin, you just act.
Seems like
you have to.
It's required by law, actually. California law. Not every state.
What do you think Doug Baldwin's going to do when he's done catching passes?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If he ends up in a California team, he has to act.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned the Nintendo Entertainment System earlier. A little bit.
A few times.
The Hunt for Red October for the Nintendo Entertainment System was released after the movie, but ironically, it was before the book.
Good.
That seems interesting.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
What's that game even like?
It looks awful. Do you know what a cave game is? It's a type of game.
Oh yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah, it's a rough game. I think you can watch a speedrunner on YouTube play it in about 12 minutes.
It's funny. I started to watch it. It starts the exact same way the movie starts, with the American government and the Soviet government say these events never occurred, and then it goes into it, and it's just like a really far-fetched video game, though. And there's like robots and stuff shooting missiles.
Shooting robotic dolphins or something.
I'm like, oh, so that is actually accurate on this one.
Yeah, it definitely did not happen.
So it originally came out on the NES, but then I think they even re-released it on the Game Boy Color and another system of some kind.
Did they really?
Yeah.
I'm going to find this game then.
It's like the final... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it came out on 2 or 3 different systems. So it's out there, people.
This looks like kind of like a Echo the Dolphin or helicopter style game, where you
Battletoads a little bit.
Battletoads.
The final boss is Mecha Stalin, I think.
Mecha Stalin. All right, let me get this last fact out of here. James Earl Jones wanted to wear his Darth Vader helmet, but the director said it wouldn't make any sense.
Well, the director's wrong.
I don't think James Earl Jones had a Darth Vader helmet.
George had one custom made for him.
Oh, okay.
That's not his body in the... Okay.
Exactly. That's why it was custom made.
Speaking of bodies, how about Tim Curry's body in this?
God, he's so hot.
How about Tim Curry's body today?
Not.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
On that note, everybody be sure to stick around for the interview with Ian from Cold War Conversations. It is coming right up. It is excellent. Anything you want to know about the Cold War, listen to that, and then go ahead and check out his show. It's amazing. At Mac East Second Floor Studios, sometimes we don't have all the answers. In dire times like this, we've decided to call in the very best. Welcome to an interview with an expert. So tonight we have with us Ian from Cold War Conversations. How you doing tonight?
Really good, thank you, and looking forward to talking about one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes. I can't wait. I can't wait to get into it. This is a big movie that we've been waiting for a really long time. And before we get into it, you want to give us a little background on what Cold War Conversations is about?
Yeah, it's a relatively new podcast. I started it in March this year. That's 2018. And it's really about recording the personal stories and lesser-known aspects of the Cold War. So what I'm aiming to do is encourage people to learn more about this period of history. And over time, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to build an oral archive of those that lived through and experienced the Cold War firsthand.
That's awesome. That's a very cool podcast. I'd encourage anybody who hasn't heard it to go check it out. One of your episodes that really stood out to me. Recent release is your episode 35 from November 10th. And you probably know which one I'm talking about. It's the one with the title, The Man Who Owns a Soviet Submarine.
Now, that was a lot of fun doing that one. It's basically this guy who really almost by accident has acquired a Soviet submarine, and he has it moored in the middle of a river in the UK, and he's looking for somewhere to put it. He bought it sort of like at an auction, thinking he could do lots of tours on it and stuff like that. That hasn't necessarily come off, but what's great about the sub is that it's like a ghost ship. It's like the crew left, a few hours ago. And when I went on there, it was just me and him, and there was a problem with the lights as well, which made it even more atmospheric. So we're stumbling around by torchlight. I mean, my head had quite a lot of bumps by the end of it. But it's a fascinating ship. It's a Foxtrot class Soviet submarine. I believe there's a similar one at San Diego for those visitors who'd be interested the other side of the pond. But yeah, it was really good fun.
I bet. I mean, because we can go on tours in the San Diego one, but I imagine your tour had to be top notch. You got to crawl all over that darn thing.
Yeah, it was, and being in there on your own as well, just added to it. And the San Diego one is sort of like, looks like they've really tidied it up and cleaned it up, whereas this one just had loads more. It felt like it had loads more atmosphere about it. But they have filmed a couple of movies on there. I mean, I saw your episode and I forget the number. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
But the one you did on Black Sea, is it called? The one with Jude Law?
With Jude Law, yep.
That was filmed on there. And there's another one that's just come out, which is a comedy called Hotel... Oh, God, this is useless. This isn't going to sound very good. Anyway, I'll send you the link to the name, but it's basically a hotel based on a submarine after a nuclear war or some conflict. It's a comedy, as
Really?
you might have guessed. Yeah. The trailer's on YouTube, and I was watching it earlier, and the name of it's completely gone out of my head, but that's been filmed on it as well.
That's incredible. I'm learning things. I didn't even know we had another new submarine movie coming out, especially one with the premise like that. That's great.
Yeah, it looks very British. It's a well, you know what I mean. It's a British comedy. It's sort of, it's not Monty Python, but it's I'm just trying to see if I can find it actually. It's called The Fitzroy.
The Fitzroy.
The movie is called The Fitzroy, and it came out actually in 2017. And it's set in a post-apocalyptic. God, try saying that after you've had a beer. Post-apocalyptic. I can't say it now. 1950s, and the Fitzroy Hotel is a derelict submarine beached just off Margate, which is a seaside town in the UK.
Wow.
It's all about the constant battle to keep the decaying hotel airtight and afloat. I'll send you the link to the trailer. It sounds great.
Yeah, that's going on the watch list for sure. Oh my gosh. So we are wrapping up Cold War Movie Month, and some people may not know, because as you may have noticed on our show, we are not historians, but can you just explain to our listeners, how did the Cold War start?
Well, it started after the end of World War II. The US, Britain, France, and Canada, the rest of the British Commonwealth Empire, were allies with the Soviet Union, which some people find quite surprising, but it was true. And it was quite a strong alliance, and it was the alliance that beat Nazi Germany and didn't necessarily beat Japan. The Russians only came into the Japanese side into the war to fight against the Japanese at the very end, when it was almost all over. But in the following years, the relationship between the Western Allies, I use the shorthand, the Western Allies and the Soviet Union, became more and more fractious. And one of the main things that sort of broke the relationship was around this thing called the Marshall Plan. And General Marshall was a US general. He came up with the idea of rebuilding Europe, war-torn Europe, with American finance. And obviously the Soviets didn't want that in their sphere of influence, which was Eastern Europe. And so there was a conflict, not a conflict as in terms of a battle, but there was a conflict of ideas and ideology there, and probably not probably, but that resulted in an incident known as the Berlin blockade, which was in 1948. And Berlin is a city in Germany, but it was deep in Soviet territory. It was an island in Soviet territory, governed by the victorious Allies, which were the French, the Americans, the British, and the Soviets. And the British, American, and French areas of Berlin were known as West Berlin and were completely surrounded by Soviet troops. Now, the Western Allies were allowed to supply Berlin by train and by air and by road. But what happened in 1948 is the Soviets cut off the road and rail links to try and starve the city into submission and for it to be subsumed into that eastern zone. And so the Allies started something called the Berlin Airlift, where they used transport planes to supply the city. And what was quite ironic is these were the same pilots who were flying these missions to supply Berlin who had been bombing the city only a few years earlier. And that's sort of the start of the Cold War.
That's crazy. I mean, there's so much going on there. It's incredible. And just the fight for that one city. And it's so weird that eventually, the Berlin Wall goes up, cuts the city in half. It's shocking.
Yeah. And Berlin is one of my favorite cities to visit. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I have not had the opportunity, but I would love to go.
It's a fascinating city. No submarines, sadly.
Looks like I'll have to skip it then.
But some great museums and some fascinating history. I mean, I was lucky enough to go there when the Berlin Wall was still up, and it really lived up to all those spy movies crossing into East Berlin. I did feel like Richard Burton's Spy Who Came In From the Cold, But luckily my exit from East Berlin wasn't as traumatic as his.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned also, the Allies and Russia. Are there other players in the Cold War that people may not realize were involved?
Yeah, there were. I mean, the main area of the conflict was, for the bulk of the Cold War was over Europe. And the term, it's interesting explaining the term of the Cold War. The Cold War is around the fact that the conflict didn't turn hot, that there wasn't any outright war between the two adversaries. But the Korean War, which occurred in the 1950s, was a hot war. And whilst we always talk about, to some degree, the Soviet Union versus NATO and this sort of side of things, obviously China at that point was a communist country, still is, sort of. And China came in on the side of the North Koreans, who had already invaded South Korea. And the United Nations sent troops to South Korea to defend that country. So it was a United Nations operation. The bulk of the troops were United States troops. The British were involved, and even lesser-known countries such as Turkey had troops there as well. So that's one of the countries that people might not be aware of, but there were proxy wars fought as well during the Cold War, where the two powers, the communists and the Allies, were financing each side, such as in the Congo in Africa and Angola as well. But there's other countries that people probably don't hear about, or incidents that people don't know about, such as the Prague Spring, where even though Czechoslovakia was a communist-run country and was within the Soviet sphere of influence, they had a government there who wanted to lessen the restrictions on the population there. So they allowed a free press, and they allowed, more freedoms than most of the communist countries had at the time. The Soviets didn't take a very good view of that, sent in tanks and suppressed that in 1968. And there was a similar situation in Hungary in 1956 as well. And these are the stories that I'm aiming to cover within the Cold War Conversations podcast, is these lesser-known stories, and to find people who can talk in English and explain, or give me an eyewitness account of what actually went on.
That is great, because we all know about the space race, everything like that, but the things that we don't learn about, that is cool, because we never hear about those things in Hungary or anything like that.
Yeah, and also it's just the ordinary stuff that people had to put up with. I mean, I've done a number of interviews with people from East Germany, and just trying to understand the fact that they couldn't go to university unless they joined the Young Pioneers, which was like a communist youth movement within East Germany. And if their parents were, let's say, university lecturers or somebody like that, then that might lessen their chance of going to university, because the communist government wanted to support the children of the workers and things like that. So there's almost like this, whilst there's a lot of similarities between what life was like in the West, there's a lot of differences. And those I find are really interesting, how just regular day-to-day life was affected by, the ideology of communism.
That is very cool. And so I think that kind of even plays in this next question, because you're talking about the things you're learning on the show. Has there been anything that when you heard it so far in your episodes, you just kind of jaw dropped? I mean, it just blew you away. Something that was so odd you'd never heard of.
There's nothing I've heard that has sort of like really surprised me, although I have a number of interesting episodes coming up, which where I'm interviewing a former officer of the East German Army about his training and what life was like when his country basically imploded and disappeared almost overnight. So that's interesting, hearing those views. I think one of the most interesting conversations I had was with the son of Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. Now, he was 20 when Khrushchev came to power, and Khrushchev was the Soviet leader at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So talking to somebody who'd actually been there when some of the key decisions of the Cold War were made was fascinating, because he was telling me about, the fact that the Americans didn't realize that they'd given tactical control of nuclear weapons to local Soviet commanders in Cuba. So the command and control system wasn't, the Soviet president saying launch the missiles. If the Americans had made a land invasion of Cuba at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, a local Soviet officer had the power to launch nuclear weapons independently. So that's pretty jaw-dropping. I guess that goes in the jaw-dropping category.
Yeah, that's a little dicey situation there.
Yeah. I think the one other one that is a really interesting one is the Able Archer NATO military exercise, which you may be familiar with, but this was in the 1980s when Reagan was president. And the Soviets had got particularly paranoid at this point, and they genuinely believed that the US and NATO were going to launch a nuclear first strike on the Soviet Union. So they had spies all over Western Europe trying to pick up any indication as to when this was going to happen or if it was going to happen. And the Able Archer exercise happened to coincidentally be a practice for NATO launching nuclear weapons. So the Soviets are monitoring this exercise really closely, and then suddenly NATO go on radio silence. All the comms drop out. So the Soviets are going, shit, this is it. This is it. And they have jets at the end of runways ready to take off, and then suddenly the exercise ends, the radio comes back on, everything goes back to normal, and the Soviets realise it wasn't it, but it was so close. And it's one of these ones that people just aren't really aware about, that how close we came to nuclear war in 1983.
I can see why. I can imagine being one of those Russian leaders getting ready to crap your pants when the nukes launch.
Yeah. Well, the leader at that point was Andropov, because Brezhnev had died and Andropov had took over. He was former KGB, head of KGB, and he was really ill at the time as well, which didn't help things. So, it was dodgy, as we say in the UK.
Oh, I like that term. That's a good term. So there obviously all sorts of things came about because of the Cold War. What do you think are the best and the worst things that have come about from it?
Well, the best thing that came about of it was that we didn't go to war. You know, that the deterrence appeared to work. Towards the end of the Cold War, there was the INF Treaty, which significantly reduced the number of nuclear weapons that were around. That was probably the best thing that happened. I think probably the worst thing was just the massive waste of resources and people's lives in, building and maintaining these weapons. And I mean, probably the example of the guy that the East German Army officer who I've interviewed is that, he signed up for 25 years expecting to serve in the army for 25 years. And within 2.5 yees, there was no country left to defend. It was completely a waste. So, and, there was a lot of hope at the end of the Cold War that we would be friendly with the Russians and that the world would be a better place. But, we just seem to be going full circle and just repeating. And this whole, you've probably heard the term Cold War 2.0, but and I think that's why there is a lot of interest in the Cold War now, because I'm finding huge numbers, lots of people interested, and people who've never lived through that period. A lot of young people very, very interested in it, which is great because I lived through it. I remember the threat of nuclear weapons and seeing the confrontations in Eastern Europe. I can remember very clearly the rise of Solidarity, the free trade union in Poland, and I was in my mid-20s when the wall came down. That has always been a very impactful event. And it always makes me laugh when my kids are doing their history and they're asking me about it. And I say, I can remember that. I can tell you. I can tell you what it was like before the wall came down. And they yawn and, go and play on their Xbox.
Yep. We're like, oh, that's just Dad talking again.
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating to me because I was born a year-ish before the wall came down, so I have no idea about any of it. We never learned about it in school, and so the way that I can learn is go back and watch documentaries, listen to shows like yours, and it's absolutely fascinating. It is very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And, anybody who wants to learn more, come over to Cold War Conversations. We're on every podcast app, and we're up to episode 38. So not to the heady heights of the number of episodes that you have with Submersion, but getting there.
We're only a few ahead, so don't worry about that. And I think one of probably the best things that happened with the Cold War was all the great movies that we've had from it.
Great segue. Very good.
So you've probably watched a lot of Cold War movies. Do you have one? It doesn't even have to have a sub in it at all. But what is your favorite Cold War movie?
Apart from Hunt for Red October. Okay.
All right, what's number 2 then?
Okay. Well, no, yeah. You're right. There are a lot of great Cold War movies. I think one of my favorites is Funeral in Berlin with Michael Caine. I don't know whether you've seen that.
I have not.
You should definitely see that. It's got a great theme tune. And Michael Caine is this British secret agent, but he's very dismissive of his superiors, doesn't get on with his bosses at all. And he's a great character. And it's based on the book by Len Deighton, who's a really famous UK spy author. And it's all filmed in Berlin. And there's a shot of him actually going through Checkpoint Charlie, but I think it's a double that does that sequence, as they didn't want to lose the star, I suppose.
Yeah, Michael Caine's kind of legendary. It'd be pretty bad to lose him.
Yeah. And there's a great documentary on YouTube about the making of it, with Michael Caine doing the commentary. That's worth a look. Probably the classic one is Spy Who Came In From the Cold with Richard Burton that I mentioned earlier, which is black and white, but doesn't lose anything for being black and white. It makes it better, I think. I quite like black and white movies. And I remember I listened to your episode on the Bedford incident, which I felt you were a bit harsh in some of your reviews there of that. I quite like that film.
It is a really good film, but we're always looking for subs. But if I step back and look at it and try to not think about how we barely got a submarine in that movie, it is great. The tension is awesome. Yeah.
You're right. I think you only see a periscope in it, actually. I think that's the nearest you get. I think the budget wasn't huge, possibly.
It's probably just a tube of PVC sticking up out of the water, and they're dragging it or something to get that shot.
Yeah. But no, great movie, black and white. So, good movie. The other one I quite like, which possibly isn't Cold War, but it's right on the edge of the Cold War, is The Third Man with Orson Welles. Now, I don't know whether you've seen that. It's set in Vienna after the end of World War II, and Vienna was in the same situation as Berlin, in so much that it was split into 4 zones: French, British, American, and Soviet. And it's set around Orson Welles, who is a black marketeer who has been killed, and his friend comes over from America, Holly Martin, who is a writer of Western pulp fiction novels. He comes over to try and find out what's happened to Orson Welles. But it is a great movie. It's got some great imagery in it, and it's often used by film schools and film colleges to show great use of imagery and editing and stuff like that. And again, that one has a great theme tune. Lastly, probably the other one I would mention, and this definitely doesn't have any submarines. It's a film called Wings of Desire, and it's a German film, and it's by a German director called Wim Wenders, and he's quite a famous German director. And it's the story, and forgive me, just bear with me here, but it's the story of angels who live in Berlin, and one of them falls in love with a mortal and therefore has to become a mortal himself. And Peter Falk is in it, Columbo. Is in it, playing himself. And it is a great movie because it just is I think it's a great portrait of 1980s Berlin. It won't be everybody's cup of tea. There's a lot of subtitles in it. But I really like it as a movie. So there's quite a eclectic list I've given you there.
No kidding. I wrote every single one of those down to add to my watch list. I can't wait to check them out.
Feel free to tell me they're a load of rubbish later on. But
well, yeah, I will have to let you know. But they sound great. And when you said Wings of Desire, I thought that sounded a little seductive, and it sounds like it's going to be.
You're like the female lead in it, then.
Oh, yeah?
The trapeze artist.
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right, so we did mention, you said it before, The Hunt for the Red October. A fine piece of cinema, is it not?
It is indeed. It is indeed. Probably not known for the best Russian pronunciation ever given on screen. But certainly I think it's great action, great suspense, and it's got a brilliant cast. I mean, if you look at the cast, it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Alec Baldwin in this really surprised me because most of the stuff I've seen Alec Baldwin in, he's kind of a goofy type guy. But when I watch some of the 90s movies he's in, there's one, it's going to bug me. I think it's called The Edge with him and Anthony Hopkins, where they're in Alaska getting chased by a bear. But that's totally different. That's a fun movie. But he was surprisingly great in this. And even if you watch the behind the scenes, they talk about how good he was and how fast he can pick up his lines. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, he is great in it. And I think it's easy to forget that this was filmed in the 1990 something movie? But, limited ability to do special effects. They had to build the submarines.
Oh, yeah.
And the submarine interiors. And if you watch the making of the movie video on YouTube, I mean, the contraption they've got to rotate the submarine around and, give the impression that it's diving and then rising up. It's amazing.
Oh, it is. And they even use, one of the things that's so cool in there is they also talk about the miniature work they do. And they have that miniature sub to film the quote unquote underwater shots. And they're just moving it through this dark alleyway with all sorts of fog being pumped in. But it looks so good. You would never know that's what they were doing when you're watching the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that helps with it because, you've watched movies where you thought, God, that is so obviously a model.
Oh, definitely.
Whereas this, really carries it off and it helps to build the tension. I think the other, one of the other standout actors in this is Scott Glenn as the US submarine captain. I think he's brilliant in it.
Everybody is phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah, there's some good British names in there as well. I mean, there's obviously Sean Connery, who I'm sure we will talk about in a little bit more detail. But there is Peter Firth, who I think you there's a series we have in the UK called Spooks. I think you call it MI5.
Okay.
And Peter Firth is the leader of the spies in the series. It's a British TV series.
Now, is he any relation to Colin Firth or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. But he doesn't last very long in this movie anyway, because he's the actor that plays the commissar.
Yeah, he doesn't
and you'll
stick around
remember
too
that
long.
scene. Yeah. That tea can get very dangerous.
Yes, it can.
And there's also Tim Curry in there, who's quite a famous British actor as well. He plays the medic on the ship.
Oh, Tim Curry. He is something else.
Yeah.
He's got a great laugh. It's like, ha! Or however he does it. And also has Stellan Skarsgård, who is in a lot. People may not recognize that name, but he's in Good Will Hunting. I saw him, and my wife was watching Mamma Mia, and he was oddly on that. He's one of the...
Oh, yeah, he is, isn't he? You're right. God.
He's also in the Thor movies. He's in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's in all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. He's sort of like your, if you need a Scandinavian actor of a certain age, he's your guy.
Just grab him.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill, who is he's huge in Jurassic Park. He's in this also.
Yeah. He has a major role. He's very keen on Montana, isn't he? That's where he wants to go.
Yep. But it is funny you brought up the accents, because in this, at least they tried. We've watched some movies where they don't even try. They one that started the whole podcast, they were Russian, and it was Ed Harris and David Duchovny, and you could tell they probably just looked at each other and thought, we're never going to be able to do those accents. Let's not even attempt it.
Right. Sounds like I've been lucky to miss that one then. I think one thing I really do like about this movie, which I think is really clever, is the way they do the transition from the Russian into English. They're sort of talking in Russian, and the guy's reading from a book in Russian, and then it just segues in almost effortlessly into English, and then the rest of the film is in English. I think it's brilliantly done.
Oh, it is. Because if you're making a movie like this, which I would consider a mainstream submarine movie, people aren't going to want to sit there and read subtitles the whole time. But it is, like you said, a just great transition.
Yeah. And Sean Connery, as you say, does make a good fist of the Russian, and he is great in it. I mean, I think he was top of their list for the role. And I don't know whether you heard the story that he got the script and the front cover was missing, and he said to them, "No, I don't want to do this. This is just, crazy. This would never happen nowadays," and stuff like that.
Right.
And they said, "Well, no, it's set in the 1980s," and he hadn't realised that it was like a historical piece rather than a present day piece.
Yeah, he didn't want to, reignite any old flames there, stir some stuff up. It's a great movie. It is definitely worth watching.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's bits of humour in it as well. I mean, it's not all gung-ho action. There's some great pieces. I love the bit where Alec Baldwin, he's a naval analyst, and he says to Sean Connery at one point that he'd written a book on Admiral Halsey.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Connery says to him, "I know this book." And Alec Baldwin's going, "Oh, do you?" And Sean Connery says, "Yeah, it's rubbish. All your conclusions were wrong." And this is in the midst of them trying to evade torpedoes and God knows what being fired at them.
Oh yeah, has to make Alec Baldwin feel pretty bad about his life.
Yeah.
And one scene that is great is when they're lowering Alec Baldwin from the helicopter onto the sub, and they just cut him loose and he falls into the water.
Yeah, I mean, that is really dramatic. Although, when I sort of saw a bit more of the behind-the-scenes stuff, I realised that it wasn't out in the open sea, which is what it looked like. They were in some bay off the coast of California or somewhere, I think, because they'd built a full-size replica of a Typhoon Class submarine, which is some doing. I don't know whether they've still got that somewhere on some backlot or... but yeah, because he did the stunt himself, didn't he? Because he looks... he made sure that because the shot is the camera looking down the cable that he's attached to, and he actually looks up and releases himself.
Yes.
So
I think he even said that he wanted to do that himself. And it just, so it looks real. And it is impressive because, like you said, it does look like it's in total open ocean, like nothing around. I can't believe that was shot in some bay.
Well, I think, because that plywood submarine certainly wasn't ocean going.
Yeah, you don't want to take that thing out too far.
No, and of course we can't miss James Earl Jones.
Oh,
with that,
yes,
that great voice. I mean, that is just such a voice. I'd love to have that voice for podcasting. I'll tell you,
his voice is incredible. It's second to none.
Yeah. And there's so many great scenes in it. I mean, the scene where the Russian ambassador goes to see the Secretary of State and says, we've lost a submarine. And then he has to go back later and say they've lost another submarine. And the Secretary of State says something like, "Look, Yuri, to lose one is unfortunate, but to lose two, that just sounds really careless." It's some line like that. I can't remember how he delivers it. But.
Oh, that's a great line. It's a great movie. It's really great.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's not watched it, even if you're not into sub movies or war movies, I think this works really well. And interesting with the interviews with the director, because they're chopping and changing between different submarines, he used a different form of lighting in each of the submarines so that the viewer would know instantly what submarine they were on. And interestingly, Hunt for Red October, the Red October, the lighting is not red; it's blue. They use red lighting, I think, on the US submarine, the Dallas.
That seems very backwards.
And green lighting on the other Soviet submarine. But it was interesting, how, because when you're chopping and changing between sites and things like that, it can, if you switch off for a moment, you can think, hang on, where am I? What submarine are we on now?
Right. It can be disorienting.
Yeah.
And that is a very, very subtle but effective way to let people know.
Yeah. So have you got a scene that you like from it particularly? Sorry, I'm not supposed to be interviewing you.
No, that's fine. Little role reversal never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
One that I love is just the standoff at the end where the Americans finally get on the Red October and they're just standing in the room with Sean Connery. And man, you could just hear a pin drop in that room.
Yeah. Scott Glenn is great in that scene as well, and because Connery, doesn't he say to Sam Neill, he says in Russian, they look like a bunch of cowboys because Scott Glenn's got his holster there and he's got it unclipped as well.
Oh, yep. That's something I've seen in many of the Cold War films that I've seen is we have that standoff. As is with the whole Cold War, they're just standing and you can just feel the tension. And it's great because you're just waiting for one person to make a move.
And I think that's where Cold War works well, because it wasn't a war of fighting. You can have those confrontational scenes where it's not obvious that you would just open fire on them because you're not at war with them. So you can have those. standoffs. I mean, talking of sub movies and obviously moving away from Red October, but have you seen Ice Station Zebra?
Great movie.
Yeah, I mean, special effects leave somewhat to be desired, but when it was made, it was probably state of the art.
Yes. Did you recently watch it?
I haven't watched it for a while, but I remember really liking it. And great, again, a phenomenal cast. Rock Hudson, Ernest Borgnine, Patrick McGowan.
Oh, yes. Even Jim Brown from the Cleveland Browns.
Really?
Yes. Yep. He's the hardened, tough Marine who gets on board the sub. But that movie is great as well. At the very end, when the Russians parachute in.
Yeah.
And there is a shot fired.
Yeah, you don't know. It's one of those ones where you don't know how it's going to end. And I think with Red October, you get to a point where you think, right, I can see how this is going to happen. And, oh, no, it's going off in another direction.
Yeah.
And, it keeps the suspense, right through to the end.
Oh, definitely. Ice Station Zebra it's not necessarily really highly rated, but there are people, it has quite the following, and I understand why. It's a great movie. I think people need to watch it.
Yeah. When's your episode on that one?
That one is in the past. I can't remember. That might have been.
I missed it. Oh, I'll have to go back through the back catalogue.
Yeah, that might have been about 30 movies ago or something like that.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. I'll search that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's good. It's a good movie. So is there anything else?
Not really. If people are interested in Hunt for the Red October, I mean, it's dead cheap on DVD now because it's been out for quite some time.
Oh yeah.
And it's a great. Well, it wasn't made in the Cold War, but it's a great Cold War, set movie. So would highly recommend it.
Awesome. That is great to hear. And Ian, I know you've got a website and all that stuff, and you said anybody can find your podcast anywhere, but go ahead. What is your, how do people get to your website? Where's the best place to follow Cold War conversations, all that good stuff?
Right. Well, we're all over the place, but the main website is coldwarconversations.com. We're also on Twitter at Cold War Pod. We're on Facebook as well, and I'm surprised I couldn't find Submersion on Facebook.
I'll find you on there. We are on there.
Okay. Oh, really? Oh, okay. I'll have to search harder. But anyway, if you search Cold War Conversations on Facebook, we have a discussion group on there, which is really well worth joining because we have quite a few of our guests come on there. Treat it like an after-show party. And they come on and people will ask further questions and stuff like that. So we have, military veterans, civilians who served in the Cold War and loads of people like myself who are just really interested in that period. So that's Facebook. We're also on Instagram, Cold War Conversations on there as well. So most major social media platforms. And as I said before, to listen to the podcast, just go into whatever podcast app you have and search for Cold War Conversations. That's the end of my advert.
Well, great. It was great having you on the show, and I really appreciate it. And I hope we get to talk more Cold War movies soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you having me on and being able to wax lyrical about one of my favorite movies. So fantastic. And everybody, listen to Submersion. Anything, any sub movie, you name it, they're going to cover it.
We're going to try.
Well, I'm an avid listener. There's a big back catalogue I've got to work through here, but it sounds like I'm going straight for Ice Station Zebra when we hang up this call.
Thanks for listening to Submersion. Find us on SoundCloud and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Can't get enough of us? Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every Thursday. And if you like what you heard, please go ahead and give us a rating.